Host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to the Better Hair, Better You show with Dr. Sierra, where the Robotic Hair Institute in Fort Lauderdale, Florida is a premier robotic hair restoration clinic. Dr. Sierra treats men and women of all ages who long to return to the days when they had copious amounts of hair. From implants to toupees to various chemical applications, men and women are eager to embrace a variety of treatments that promise to restore hair to its youthful volume and abundance. This show will discuss the latest procedures and technology for hair restoration. We specialize in providing the latest no-scar, robotic view hair restoration surgery. And thanks to advances in medical science and technology, we also offer non-surgical procedures and medical protocols combined with proprietary topical compounds to help augment and solidify results. Get ready to call in at 888-565-1470 and join the conversation of this amazing procedure. Let's start improving our lives.
Hello, happy Monday, and welcome back to another episode of Better Hair, Better You. I'm your host for tonight, Alana Shearer, your South Florida arts advocate and media host, and I am sitting alongside our very own Dr. Rafael Sierra, who owns his own clinic in the Fort Lauderdale area. Hello, Dr. Sierra, how are you today?
I'm doing very well. How
Doing
are
well.
Yes.
The humidity has gone down a little bit. My hair's a little less staticky, so today's been a good day.
More excited about it.
For sure. Well, if you'd like to call in during our show, thank you for tuning in, whether you are catching our live stream or listening on 95.3, 96.9, or 1470. Our lines are open, and you can feel free to give us a call at any point during our show at 888-565-1470. That's 888-565-1470. Now, to give a little bit of a recap for those of us who might be joining us for the first time, you are a professional when it comes to hair restoration. Can you give us a little bit of a background on what you do? Because you work with robotics and your surgery. It's a pretty cool combination.
That's right.
Can you give us a little introduction on what you do at your practice?
So, as we said before at the beginning of the show, my specialty is to do robotic hair transplant. And I know it sounds like science fiction, but it's not really for science fiction. I've been doing robotic surgery for about 15 years. Initially, I did it for other types of procedures, and now I'm doing it for hair transplantation. Basically, what we do is remove hair from one part of the head, usually the back, and implant it in the areas that we're trying to regain hair or increase density.
And the way you do this is quite special too, because we talked last time how it's a very non-invasive practice, the specific type of surgery that this is, correct? Now,
That's correct,
the
yes.
technology, the science, the way we have adapted today, it is state-of-the-art, it is safe to do, and it's the most non-invasive, correct?
That's right. And then the other advantages that the robot gives us is that we can obtain the best quality graft that we can get, and that's because the robot is programmed specifically to adjust in a way that it doesn't harm those follicles that we're trying to move from one place to another. And if you can picture it, it's like moving one tree from one place to another. If you damage the roots and you put it somewhere else, that tree is probably going to die. So it's very important that when we take that hair follicle, stays as intact as possible. And the robot can do that by has binocular vision. It is programmed to adjust in a way that it doesn't harm other follicles. So it's a really, really, really exciting way to do it because it gives us really good results.
It's pretty cool what you can do with science today, right?
Yeah.
Now, besides being a very cool latest procedure for someone who might be seeing some balding or losing their hair, we also discussed how transformative this type of procedure is for people. I mean, I said last show constantly, when I look good, I feel good. It's how I project my confidence. And you truly help change lives for the better to help receive these types of regrowth, I guess you could say, in their futures.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing how something that may seem so simple as having a little hair or more hair can affect someone's life, and basically comes down to self-esteem and how we look at ourselves and how we project ourselves to the world. And I mean, it's amazing how it's something so simple in a way and so obvious, the profound impact that can have in one person. I've seen people that have kind of flourished after they have the procedure. They've been almost in hiding using hats or trying to not get in the pool, or I mean other situations after being intimate with someone, and then they're concerned because they don't want to turn on the light. And when they have this procedure and they see their new self, it's like a new life almost.
Which is incredible. I mean, to have that type of security in yourself and for what that does, not only for them, but it impacts everyone around that person, their family, their friends, and
Right.
really changes who they are.
That's
Now, since our first episode, we had some people write in. So I want to read off a question we received from our last episode. It is from Joe from West Palm Beach. Hello, Joe, if you're listening this episode. And he wrote in to say that he has had some hair loss before, and he remembers when talking with his doctor had asked specifically if he's losing his hair in his sleep versus in his shower. And Joe doesn't really remember the explanation as to why or if there is even a difference between the way you are losing your hair. Would you be able to help explain differences for people? Is it important to find out when or how they are losing their hair?
Well, I mean, it can be important if we're looking for other causes of hair loss, let's say for hormonal problems or nutritional problems. It might be a little useful to know if there's a specific situations where patients notice more hair loss than others. But in general, the time of day, or I've even heard people say, "Oh, but I've heard that people lose hair more in the spring or in the fall," and that's really not something that it's relevant. Usually, it's something maybe people notice it more, but it's not something that has been really associated with certain days or weather or anything like that.
So whether it's in the sleep, in the shower, in the spring or in the winter, it's all the same when it comes to receiving your types of treatments and helping them.
Yes, as long as we can rule out any other kind of underlying problem, like I said, hormonal or nutritional, then the treatments that we offer are effective for that hair loss.
And now let me ask you, I know my hair, it falls in the category of it's fairly thin, but I have a lot of it. I know people have a large variety of whether they have super thick, super thin, a lot, a little. When it comes to textures of hair, does that change over time for people? When I start getting in my 50s or 60s,
Right.
Is it true my hair will start thinning down and completely changing?
Yeah, that's actually it's part of the process of losing hair or aging, if you will, especially in men. Maybe we mentioned in the last show that the main reason why men lose hair is because of the effect of testosterone. And testosterone is a derivative. It's a derivative of testosterone that affects the hair follicle. And what it does is it starts diminishing the size of that hair follicle, and as the hair follicle gets smaller, the thickness of the hair gets less, and that progresses until there's a very thin hair that is almost invisible, and then the hair follicle basically dies. So it is a process where, yes, over time and because of different factors, that hair follicle starts getting smaller and smaller, and then the hair gets thinner and thinner.
And sometimes, usually, when that thinness comes, it becomes more breakable, not as healthy,
Yeah.
strong.
Mm-hmm.
Won't be able to throw my hair up in those ponytails as much anymore, right? Now, using, say, creams like Rogaine or certain products that say they help with the strengthening of hair to prevent that thinning process.
Right.
Does that end up saving hair from falling out and from that balding process?
Yes, I mean specifically Rogaine. It's minoxidil, which is medicine that was initially created for blood pressure, and at some point they realized that people that were taking it were actually getting better hair. So the studies show that minoxidil actually improves blood flow to the hair follicles, and by doing that improves the thickness of hair. So it doesn't create new hair. That's a lot of people have that misconception that by using Rogaine they're gonna create new hair. That doesn't happen.
So it's okay for prevention, possibly, but not necessarily that
Exactly.
regrowth of what your procedures can
Exactly.
offer.
The only way to get new hair in the head is by doing a transplant. There's really nothing out there that has proven to create new hair follicles in areas that those have been lost.
And remind me again, the surgery that you perform, it's the correct me if I'm wrong, is it FUE?
That's right.
Oh, perfect. I remembered. And what does that stand for again?
It
Remind our
stands
listeners.
for follicular unit extraction.
Perfect. And that is the one that you talked about earlier, using the robotic transplant, specifically taking it from the back of the scalp.
That's right.
All right. Making
Taking
sure.
one hair follicle at a time. And that's the reason why after we do the procedure and after a few days, there's really no visible scar or wound. I mean, one of the advantages is that the scalp is a very well vascularized, meaning it has a lot of blood flow, and that allows it to heal really quickly. So most people will notice that after the first 2-3 days, they have some scabs, and then after a week and a half, they can really. There's almost nothing to look at in the donor area.
I'm amazed by the recovery time. I think that is such a quick turnaround for
Yes.
such a big process and surgery like this of, being so transformative. To have that quick of a turnaround time is incredible.
It's amazing,
to even
yeah.
think about that. Now, as far as maintenance required to keep the new hair growth. So I go to you, I have the procedure performed. I have great hair now. It's been about a week since everything's been taken care of and healed properly. What type of maintenance do I need to upkeep to make sure that my hair stays nice? Because you've mentioned before, this is a one and done process, correct?
That's correct.
Which is insane. This isn't something we have to keep returning back to. It is a one and done process. It is something that is permanent. So what can we do to help keep the maintenance of it nice and healthy?
So that's right. The hair that we transplant will grow for the rest of your life. And the reason is because those hair follicles are not sensitive to that hormone that we were talking about. What do we need to do after the procedure to keep that hair is try to, one, prevent further hair loss. That's the most important part of it. That's why I tell my patients there's two parts of hair restoration. One is the transplant, and the other one is to stop or slow down further hair loss. Because if we don't do that, then maybe 5-10 years from now, you'll need another transplant. And even though I love doing what I do want my patients to get the best out of their money and their time. And so the best treatment sometimes is prevention. So we want to do that.
And as far as prevention tactics, do you have, say, 3 top tactics you like to tell people? I know last time, for me, for instance, you talked about those slick back hairstyles or tight braids, that would be an example of one tactic. Do you have any other tips for people to help with the prevention of this type of hair loss?
Yes. So there's medications like that are proven to work for decreasing hair loss. And one of them is minoxidil, Rogaine, or there's many other brands. There's finasteride, which is basically blocks the effect of testosterone. Then there is, controversial results for the laser, low-intensity laser. And then platelet-rich plasma. It's something that is being used now. We can talk about that. That's a whole different, subject. But it's basically the patient's own blood concentrate that is injected into the scalp, and that has shown really promising results. And basically by kind of replenishing those hair follicles. So those four are probably the ones that I would say that are my top four.
Prevention tips.
Yeah.
Very nice. Well, we are going to continue the conversation, but before we do, we're going to take a short commercial break. I'm Alana Shearer. You are watching Better Hair, Better You. We'll be right back.
At Sierra Robotic Hair Institute, most patients notice incredible hair growth within a few months after their procedure. New hair growth may continue over the course of a year, with the most noticeable results usually seen 12 months after the procedure has been performed. The new hair growth can provide patients with natural, thicker hair and fuller results. Men and women who undergo our post-surgical hair restoration protocols often experience dramatic and significant improvement in hair density and volume that helps augment procedure results. Sierra Robotic Hair Institute has performed numerous hair restoration procedures, all with excellent success. If you have an interest in the latest, next-generation hair restoration and would like to learn more, please give us a call at 954-776-0830. Again, that's 954-776-0830.
Hello and welcome back to Better Hair, Better You. I'm your host for tonight, Alana Shearer, and I'm sitting alongside Dr. Rafael Sierra with the Hair Institute located in Fort Lauderdale. Now, Dr. Sierra, would you like to give out the location of your fabulous hair restoration clinic?
Yes, it's. Thank you for the fabulous part. It's East Commercial, 2151 East Commercial Boulevard, Suite 204, and like you said, it's Fort Lauderdale.
In the Fort Lauderdale area. Now, we live in sunny South Florida, so my next question for you is when it comes to your hair restoration surgeries and practices, does this require any less activity in the pool or outdoors, being in the sun? I mean, I love my beach days, but how does that affect my hair growth or the process after coming to you for services?
Sure. Yeah. So after the surgery, it is very important that we take care of those new hair follicles, especially the ones that we transplanted. Those they have to be. We have to be careful not to do any kind of friction or pressure on them. As far as sun, yes, it's unfortunate, but it's only about 2 weeks that we have to stay out of sun. You can wear either a loose-fitted cap or a hat. That's recommended, but ideally no exposure to sunlight. As far as swimming in the pool, I would say also a week, and that's just to allow those hair follicles to really kind of fix themselves into their new place, and that takes about 4 to 7 days.
Okay, so 4 to 7 days for that, and for the sun protection, about, you said 2 weeks.
2 weeks, and that's just because we're still waiting for those wounds to heal.
You're being gentle. I mean, you just had a procedure,
Yeah.
so you would imagine you would take things easy before going too crazy with your brand new luscious hairdo, right?
That's right.
Now, I do have another question brought in from Mary over in New York City. She watched your first show and was wondering if she were to fly in for a procedure from New York, assuming that it's on the crown of her head is where she would need some hair growth. How long would it take to complete for her to get the okay to fly back home, would you say?
She could be back in the plane in 2 days.
In 2 days?
Yes.
So
and
she would have to, Mary, if you're listening, you would have to wear your sun hat for 2 weeks, but you could fly right back to New York in
that's
2
correct.
days?
Yes.
That's insane. That's so
and that's
quick.
just to make sure that there's no problems on the first day, and then by the second day, like I said before, those sites that where we remove the follicles and the sites where the hair is being implanted, it's already kind of protected by a little bit of scar tissue.
And we've discussed that you do a consultation before you take on a client to immediately go into a procedure where you will evaluate the patient.
Correct.
Is there a follow-up consultation that you do afterwards as well to check up on the patient?
Yes, I see patients, and again, this can be in person or virtual. 1 week after we do the procedure, then Granted, there's no other questions or problems. I see them at 6 months and then at 1 year.
Very nice. And now, hypothetically speaking, I know you are the professional and this is a permanent procedure, but say that someone has gone through this before and they find that it does not work. Can they attempt to go again, or is this a once performed, you can't have this type of procedure done again?
You can have several hair transplants, and usually what we want to do is not to harvest more than about 15% of the existing follicles in the donor area. So we're talking that people can have maybe 4 or 5 transplants in their life. So depending on the technique and what type of result the patient wants, we can tailor it to that. I mean, sometimes people need a lot of hair follicles that I don't recommend doing all at once. We're talking about 5,000 or even 4,000 hair follicles that need to be transplanted. I usually do those in 2 sessions because even though they're tiny incisions, they add up to a big wound.
So if someone came in completely bald head, I mean absolutely nothing, you would recommend about breaking it up into how many sessions?
Well, it depends, because that example that you're giving me
that's the ultimate example.
Yeah, there's some patients that unfortunately when they get to me, they're no longer a candidate for hair transplant, because remember, we start losing hair, and then the amount of hair that is in the back might not be enough to give any kind of significant result, and then we're trying to kind of thin this out to gain some density here, and the result is not going to be good. But there's patients that maybe are not as critical as what you just described, but if they need about 5,000 grafts or something like that, then we do it in 2 sessions.
And for all of our listeners, I know this past half hour has flown by us, but I want to make sure that your form of contact gets out there. For anyone who wants to find you, you're located once more again in Fort Lauderdale on
2151 East Commercial Boulevard.
And your website for anyone looking to read up more on these procedures or find his consultation info form.
It's www.sierrarobotic.com.
Perfect. And for anyone listening, you can find our next episode this next Monday from 6 to 6:30. I will remind you that this is a permanent procedure. I have someone in our studio who's flagging me down. They have to know it is a permanent one-time procedure.
Result. The hair does not fall.
The best of the best. Well, we look forward to having you back, continuing the conversations. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to comment on our live stream or to please let us know. We will answer them on our next episode. Thank you so much, Dr. Rafael, for joining us tonight. I've been your host, Alana Shearer. You've been watching and listening to Better Hair, Better You. We look forward to seeing you next time. Have a good night.
Good night. Bye.
You have been listening to the Better Hair, Better You show with Dr. Sierra. Dr. Sierra has shared valuable inspiration and information to help restore hair growth and confidence. If you want more information, call Dr. Sierra at 954-776-0830 or visit his website at sierrarobotic.com. And tune in again next week for another valuable life improvement moment.
The opinions expressed on the